the Romans go after rebels and end up burning the temple down to the ground. Uh, so here we are in Matthew 24. So they've been in the temple. Jesus has been teaching. And as he leaves the temple, walking his way, his disciples came up to him to point out its buildings. Now, Herod was not Jewish. If anything, he would have been more from the east, from the line of Esau. He had Emudian or something like that, if I remember. I can't quite remember how it's pronounced, but they were related to the Jews, but they were not Jewish. But he had talked, Herod had talked Rome into letting him become king of that area. Uh, Later, the different parts of the kingdom were broken into provinces. You have a new Herod right now from the one that had started the building project. And let's see, go on here. And he had been collecting taxes from the Jews, and he's been having different building projects. If I remember right, he did the port, or where we call Tel Aviv or Caesarea. I think that's what the old name was. He built the port there, and he built the a temple. He rebuilt. We had seen Solomon build a temple, and as the Israel began following other gods and stuff, God put them in exile, and Solomon's temple was destroyed. Before it got destroyed, the Jewish people were had fallen so far into idolatry they would end up sacrificing to idols inside the Solomon's temple. Uh, Later on, after the captivity, and they were allowed to return to their land, they built another temple. Ezra and Nehemiah, and between the period of the Old Testament and New Testament, uh, there was a time period that a person by Antiphanes, I think Atticus or something like that, he had come to the temple and he uh, sacrificed a pig on the altar. From what I understand, he would go around to different areas like Babylon and sacrifice to whatever his the god he worshipped. So he had come in and sacrificed on the altar of the Jewish temple, which became a very memorable experience of an abomination. And we're going to see after the fall of the temple, Titus, who's the one that was sent to put down the rebellion, he sacrifices on the Temple Mount because of the success of his battle to his god. And so we get the referral of back in Daniel of what Antiphanes did, because Daniel did a prophecy about. So here we are. We're into Matthew, and Jesus is going to tell about the future. Truly I tell you, not one stone here will be left on another, every one will be thrown down. Now, here you have, this is considered one of the marvels, one of the wonders of the world by the time it's built. But it doesn't last very long. Uh, they get it built, and probably 30 years later, it's about what? We think at about this time Jesus was 33 years old, so 80, 33, 70. So you've got about what, 37 years? Jesus also used this as a talking point about his death and resurrection. Tear down these stones, and in 3 days it will be rebuilt. And he's talking about his death and resurrection. But here he says, truly I tell you, not one stone here will be left on another. Everyone will be thrown down. And these were massive blocks. They were like 25 cubits, which is, if you say 18 inches, about 40 foot across or so, these blocks that were stacked to make the temple. They hauled them from the quarry. It says, while Jesus was sitting on the Mount of Olives, the disciples came to him privately. Tell us, they said, when will these things happen, and what will be the sign of your coming and of the end of the age? They gave these questions they had. You know, coming is that we think of maybe the kingdom returning. I'm not sure if they're still, come to the fact that Jesus is actually going to be crucified and killed. But he says, when is this going to happen? And Jesus answered, see to it that no one deceives you. For many will come in my name, the Christ. So Jesus seems to be saying he's going to go away for a while. There's other people going to be playing to who he is. They're going to say, I'm the Messiah, the Christ, and will deceive many. And history shows that there were many people, that the Jews followed this, said they were the Christ. You will hear, he's going to say, you will hear wars and rumors of wars. But see to it that you are not alarmed. These things must happen, but the end is still to come. So we have all these periods of time since Christ has gone into heaven. And there's been wars and people saying, this must be the time that Christ is coming. They look at the state the world is in. It says nation will rise against nation. We have sometimes the news have said, talking about possibility of World War III. He says there will be famines and earthquakes in various places, and we've seen that. There's parts of the world where there's not enough water or not enough foods grown and people starve. And we see other areas where there's earthquakes. There's a local area here. They had an earthquake, wasn't very big. I guess enough to shake the machine and tell them something happened. But it says all these are the beginning of birth pains. It's a warning, but it's not the actual event. So we have this idea that, you keep on this lookout. Don't stop watching for Christ coming. All these events are to remind us, not necessarily that the event is occurring right now, although it could, according to what Jesus teaches. They will deliver you over to be persecuted and killed, and you will be hated by all nations because of my name. And we start seeing this in Acts. That's what Paul was doing. He was called Saul at the time, but he was persecuting the Christians, the followers of the way at that time. But they didn't have the name Christian, but they were called followers of the way. Peter said we're just another sect. And later on, that sect kind of divided away from Judaism. So it says, all at that time, many will fall away and will betray and hate one another. So they're going to fall away from what? The truth, from what? Wisdom, the scriptures, and they, part of the scriptures is loving one another. They're not gonna love one another. They're gonna betray and hate one another. And many false prophets will arise and deceive many. They're gonna teach doctrines that are contrary to God's word. Because of the multiplication of wickedness, and where you don't have God's word that people follow, you're going to have wickedness. When we look at wisdom and understanding, so Job tells us that to turn away from evil is understanding. So they're not going to have any understanding. They don't have the scriptures to teach them. It says the love of most will grow cold, but the one who perseveres to the end will be saved. The world just becomes, lawless and loveless. Now this gospel of the kingdom will be preached in all the world as a testimony to all nations, and then the end will come. And I don't think there's any place on earth nowadays that the gospel has not gone. So when you see standing in the holy place the abomination of desolation spoken of by the prophet Daniel, let the reader understand. So he says, if you read Daniel, you know what I'm talking about. Then let those who are in Judea flee to the mountains. Let no one on the housetop come down to retrieve anything from his house. Well, here they are. They managed to make their last stand in Jerusalem, and they for a few months keep the Romans from entering. And then they finally hold their last stand in the temple. And as Romans try to enter the temple, there will be a fire that starts burning down the temple. And from that, they notice that they've used gold in between the blocks to kind of like prevent moisture and stuff from coming through. Kind of like